Our next speaker is Subrata Mukherjee. He's the Vice President of Product Management at The Economist. Subrata currently is leading a global transformation program for reimagining and automating the entire lead-to-cash process for the B2C subscription business at The Economist. Parts of the program include access, entitlement, commerce, payment processing, personalization, subscription management, and customer services. Subrata has worked with Bloomberg, Standard & Poor's, McGraw-Hill, and Sears Roebuck & Co. Welcome, Subrata.
Thank you. So today my goal is to actually share with you all the journey that we've taken at The Economist and try to kind of bring it to light with some of the things that you are probably trying to do at your organization, and what are some of the key takeaways you can take from here and do kind of immediately. So we have seen headlines like this as recent as February of this year, when The Independent in the UK actually closed its print edition. So, I mean, the question is publishing as we know it dying, right? So one of the themes that I'm going to talk about today is actually to say that publishing is not dying, it has just morphed into something else. And the fact it is not dying, and it is one of the exciting times ever, actually. That's how I would kind of say. There are some of the statistics which are pretty thought-provoking. If you see some of the really hot numbers here, magazines here, newspapers here, and from media usage of affluent Americans and household income over 100,000, this still kind of is a significant amount of kind of subscriber base. At The Economist, I often get asked this question: is what is your print? How is your print magazines doing versus some of your digital properties? And you'd be surprised to know that in certain markets, our print is actually growing, and in most of them flat, and probably none of the markets they are on the decline. Obviously, ad revenues are on the decline, which is no surprise, but we are primarily driven by a premium model and a subscription business. So in our case, print is one of the properties that we consistently use with our bundles to actually make a pitch for a platform that works for our consumers. So where is my passion in all of this? So many years ago, for about 10 years, for The Telegraph, this is one of the key newspapers in India, back home where I'm from. I used to be a freelance tech journalist. So I used to be a social blogger. As David said, I worked for McGraw-Hill, Bloomberg, The Economist. I have both combination of a business and a tech degree. I've got global exposure. So all of this I'm thinking there is a method to the madness. There are certain kind of trends that are coming about. And for me, I'm seeing that there is a lot of change that we all can collectively drive. So the focus for today's discussion, I'm going to focus on 3 questions only. So the 3 questions are: how to allocate our transformation dollars, how to elevate the lifetime value of customers, and how do we future-proof our digital ecosystem. So when I joined The Economist about 5 years ago, one of the things that I was tasked with was to actually look at an ecosystem from a technology perspective which will be future-proof, right? At that time, we looked at different products out there, and we were trying to find one product that works for all of our kind of subscription use cases. And guess what? We did not find it. And what we ended up doing is we actually ended up coming up with a best-of-breed ecosystem, which I'm going to, I have a slide in the end on what we ended up choosing in the kind of end after all the RFPs that we put together, is a best-of-breed ecosystem which allows you to scale your business models to what the kind of the world evolves, right? Because I don't know what models will evolve 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road. So what you need is actually to be able to invest in an open, scalable, in kind of an ecosystem, digital ecosystem, where you can add more products to it, more tools to it, or take out things that are not relevant anymore. So those are the top 3 questions that I'm going to answer. So where do we allocate our transformation dollars, right? So I take the liberty of actually bucketing into 3 broad areas. One is on content models, one is on platform experience, and the third on business strategy. So in all of these things, I think each company needs to kind of come up and look at where are some of the deficiencies, where are some of the things that you guys are struggling with, and based on that you need to invest. So for that you need to answer some of these questions. On the content models, you have to kind of look at these 3 top level questions. At what is the content relevance? So what is the type of content that your publishing ecosystem is presenting to the world? Is it kind of a breaking news kind of a content, or is it more insightful content? The second is you look at your pricing models, as in, are you free content, are you ad supported in way, paid, or both, or do you have different products that you have different bundles in which you can do that? Third is, do you have a niche offering? So are you one of the few other hundreds of outlets providing the same content, or are you niche in a particular area, whereas in you have a different message or a different insight or more a trustworthy insight than what others have? The second area I would say is on the platform experience. So what is your audience following? Is it a very traditional audience, or is it a more modern or a social audience? And how is your customer experience ecosystem? So when I joined at The Economist, and it still is actually, we had an ecosystem which was all disjointed. I'll give you an example. If you were to go in and manage your subscription account, you had 2 different pieces of the website. You could go in on our Drupal website, which used to do our website, and you have to log in there and change your password and your demographic information. If you had to do anything to do with your subscription, you had to go to another totally long, weird-looking URL, and there was no link from one to another, and you had to go in and change this, and that was the most horrible-looking website actually run by QSS, our print fulfillment partner. So obviously, as a customer, you don't want to see that. In the end, after all of that, what would you do is you will call the call center and you would want to solve a problem. But again, A, it's more time for people, and B, is your customers are things that you really don't care about them. You're just trying to there. So what we kind of took a step back is, as long when we were looking at digital transformation, we took an eye of actually doing a proper journey map, and then we did a lot of the personas, a lot of what was talked about earlier today, and we came up with an idea where we will have a customer service thing, which will be a very central My Account, which will be powered also by a Salesforce Service Cloud, where you can actually get live chat help, web-to-case emails, and a proper Service Cloud, and also a very robust My Account. And the entire goal is actually to reduce your cost for customer service. And guess what? In the end, a very mature customer service ecosystem, because nobody wants to call up, wait for a line, answer all of this. This day and age, if it's a very simple experience, you would want to do all of that yourself, right? So that is one of the areas that we did. And lastly, a best-of-breed ecosystem. So oftentimes, and this discussion I keep having a lot, is we kind of decide, all right, there are a lot of requirements that we need to meet, and we probably don't know all the requirements that we need. So it's a chicken and an egg situation. We don't know all the requirements, so we don't know what transformation is needed. For what I try to give an advice to people is, you probably know 80% of what your requirement is, and that probably would be changed. That is so fundamental to your business. So take 50% of that 80% requirement and let that be your minimum viable product. Take an MVP approach, and with that MVP approach, try to come up with an offering that solves most of your problem. And on top of that, start to build on it. Once you start to build on it, your ecosystem gradually gets mature, you get better business buy-in, your stakeholders, your investment becomes easier, because initially if you talk about funding a big business transformation project, you have to go through a lot of hoops to get the project even approved. So what you need to show is you need to show a minimum viable product. You need to show what are some of the quick wins you do. And it's not quick wins. A lot of time quick wins have a bad name because you almost put in a Band-Aid to do a quick win. What I always think is it's a simple MVP, some simple proof of concepts that you need to create to show value that this can be achieved is one of the things that you need to look at. And the third piece of the model is your business strategy. And I've bucketed into kind of 3 broad areas. Obviously, once you do in the real world, it'll be like hundreds of questions, not top 3 questions, but these 3 pointers are going to help you kind of think through the model. So from a marketing perspective, one basic question I ask people is, what is your time to market? So you have a brilliant idea in the company. How much time does it take to take that brilliant idea and implement into a test and kind of test out the waters? I'll give an example that The Economist did. Is about 2 years ago, we actually wanted to take our Economist subscription and do a bundle with our EIU country reports. So what we said is, you can buy an Economist subscription and you can choose 2 country reports of EIU, and that is your bundle we are selling. It is over 6 months that we tried, and in the end it was so complicated to work with our existing kind of set of partners and vendors with all the band-aids. In the end we couldn't pull it off. But that is some of the things that's going to, if your marketing team constantly comes up with some of these challenges, they're not going to innovate anymore. And guess what? Sometimes as technologists we get blamed that, oh, your systems are not ready. Guess what? That is precisely the reason why they are not ready, because you don't have trust in them. Marketing people and business people who have great ideas, your products and platforms are not ready for them to try those out. So what I recommend to people is, have a thought through it. Whenever in an ecosystem that you bring together, try to bring the time to market as one of your top things that you talk to them. Other things like campaign management system, those things you will come up with anyway. Try to come up with and answer one question is, after this platform goes live, what is the time to market to bring a new idea out to fruition? That is one of the key things. If you got that nailed down to 48 hours, 72 hours, you have done a great job. If it says months, you've probably not done a great job, in spite of having all the pieces of the puzzle together. From a finance model, obviously these are some of the question is no-brainer. What kind of revenue model you want to do? So are you, from a publishing perspective, are you in an advertising kind of a model? Are you in a subscription-centric model? And it could be a little bit of both. For other industries, it will be other questions, but you have to come up with what is your core revenue model, how the company makes money. You have to really be aware of that before you come to any transformation decisions. If you don't know how your company is making money, any kind of systems and any kind of thing that you're doing is not relevant. And it's not about the money also, because sustainability, like a lot of the non-profit organization with kind of goals, their social goals that they have, you should always have those social goals in mind. Is what am I doing? What is our mission? What is the company doing? And that you have to keep it front and center in your mind and not get distracted. Because if you get distracted, any of the transformation that you're doing is just a project that you're doing. You're not helping the general business value of the company. And the last one, and it is very important point, is you're trying to do a transformation initiative. You have to ask your question, do you have the talent to do that? And do you have the right talent? And do you have a good kind of a partner ecosystem that whatever talent you don't have, can you overcome that talent with your ecosystem that you have? So that is another question that you have to answer. So that is number one. So number two is, at The Economist, we are now putting in more focus on the lifetime value of customers. So I know everybody knows it, that it's a lot easier to keep a customer than to attract a new one. So that's been told many times before, right? So how do you make it an actionable? So I have kind of a simple diagram on 3 things, right? So these are some of the things we are doing at The Economist. You have to obviously stimulate business growth. There is no thing against it. So you have to have a very mature and a granular paywall. You have to find a way to actually bring in your advertising economy and your subscription economy together. So that is one of the things that you have to really look at, is how are you doing media activation. So one of the things that we do always, and as an example of what that really means, is at The Economist, we sometimes have a lot of print customers who had got digital for free. But once you check in your database records, you have seen that I would say 20 to 30% actually went in and registered and are using that content. So all of those, you have a lot of email addresses in your database and you don't know how to reach out to them. That's one problem. Number two, you have a lot of email addresses that have said that they are opted out. So if you have opted out, you can't reach out to them as well. So you need to think of clever ways through your other channels on how to reach out to them. So about 2 years ago, we helped build a data management platform within The Economist where we actually put in the BlueKai data management platform. So even though it's a very advertising-centric business case that we put together to do that initiative, one of the side kind of benefits that we're trying to put together is actually through another partner called LiveRamp. We're actually trying to find out all these emails through other platforms. Can we get a cookie? If you get a cookie from them, you would be able to, even though these people are opted out, you would be able to provide targeted ads to them. So they're browsing, let's say, not even on Economist, they're browsing on Wall Street Journal. And you have bought an ad unit, and in there you can actually say that, do you know The Economist just published an article, we know your thing. So that you can actually target people without an email, and you can look at other kind of medias. So there are clever ways where you can actually allow your subscription business and your advertising business helping each other out. Now on the other front, what we are also trying to do is we're also looking at ways for taking some of these personalization that we're doing on the subscription side and how these can actually help up create an audience for high-priced CPM ads as well as kind of sponsorship opportunities of a specific channel. So there are a lot of times when The Economist get approached to say that we need an area where a lot of senior executive or C-suite people come in and negotiate. So if you have that kind of an information on your CRM database and things like that, you can come up with a media audience that you can sell out. So then people are going to be you can kind of demand higher CPMs. Obviously, there are targeted acquisition. Some of the global expansion thing that we're trying to do is on the area of reaching out to, so The Economist right now sells to, I think, every country in the world except one because of trade embargoes, and obviously the 4 relevant product price promotion. So a lot of these things you have to do to stimulate growth. On the second front is, and this was talked about earlier, is how do you bring on customer delight, right? Without customer delight, there can't be an improvement on the lifetime value of the customer. So it is seamless customer service, accurate access, and personalized content. We've spoken about personalized content before, so I'm not going to go there. Accurate access. So even though this sounds very dry and boring, accurate access, you would be amazed to know that a lot of publishers, and we keep speaking to a lot of some of our peers in the UK particularly, the Guardian, the Telegraph, Time, and it constantly comes up that there are people who have access to content that they shouldn't, and there are people who needs to have access because they pay for it and they don't. And that is very embarrassing for an industry. So I think there needs to be a focus on proper kind of content tagging, content metadata, and how we need to accurately give access so that the trustworthy factor of the fact that, yes, I paid for the content and I'm really sure that I will get access to it. So that is one area, even though it sounds very simple and very no-brainer-ish, that you need to really focus on. And then the third is customer loyalty. So one of the kind of areas that you should look at is, particularly at The Economist, what we try and do is attract our reader base from an early age. We try and get people from college when they are getting into business schools, because oftentimes Economist articles are part of the curriculum. They are either part of the classroom material or they are part of actually some of the debates on some of the academic extracurricular activities that people do. So for that, we're trying to attract the readership at the early stage. Look at it, I mean, what we say is look at it from this way. Each customer that you have and each customer that's like a few times renewal customer is actually your brand advocate. So treat them as a brand advocate and look at ways where you can leverage that relationship to get more customers. That you should be constantly kind of looking at. So that is the third piece of the puzzle. How do you do reader engagement? How do you reduce churn? And how do you, in the end, make every customer a possible brand ambassador? That is a very kind of key point that you need to look at. So this is my kind of a simple diagram on how to elevate the lifetime value of customer. The third thing that I want to talk about is we talk about a digital ecosystem. So what is something that we've done here is you need to create a consumer platform. So in In here, we treated an e-commerce kind of platform. So it's not just the e-commerce platform, it's the e-commerce and the marketing CMS. So that is what we've used Easy Publish for. We have a DMP platform, which I earlier spoke about. We've actually are implementing a product called Piano. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with. Piano Media actually has a lot of clever offerings wherein you can do very granular and segmented and personalized paywall. So when you talk about personalization, as an earlier speaker said, it means different kind of things to different people. And one of the things that you have to do in the marketing space is, you need very custom offers, and obviously the custom offers starts off from a paywall perspective. You don't want a boring one-size-all-fit paywall because that's going to look very scripted. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to push in CRM information into our paywall. So in theory, I mean, it'll take some time to mature itself. In theory, each one of you in the room will have a separate behavioral attribute. And in theory, you would be presented with different options. There would be some people, there would be some behaviors that would be rewarded. For example, if you are not a customer, however, you've bought gifts for 3 people, and you are starting to consistently post Economist article on social networks, all of these things should be scored somewhere in the back end. And based on that, we could reward you a few times in a year with more articles. You should sell that, okay, we've seen that you're a brand ambassador, you're trying to do this for this, we are giving you 10 extra articles this week. So things like that. So you can try those things out kind of as you go along. Marketing automation, obviously we're looking at doing some Salesforce Marketo. Eloqua is also in one of our businesses. The payment gateway, we're looking at doing different credit cards, debit cards, as well as we're implementing a Zuora platform. The Zuora platform will give us to go into a lot of alternate payment in different parts of the world, which I believe is one of the aspects of our growth strategy and our retention strategy, is to actually provide payment methods that work and well in each of these areas. For example, in China, we're going to start introducing kind of like Alipay and the China Union Pay, things like that. And we believe that that is going to increase our acquisition as well as our retention target. Number 2 is customer experience. I spoke about customer service and our My Account. There is one interesting vendor in there which I want to draw your attention. That is one of the companies that we have started partnering with. The company is called GBG Locate. There used to be Locate before GBG. So that company actually, oftentimes we think that marketeers always want to assemble like different email addresses. They think, all right, let me amass as many email addresses as possible, because then what I can do is I can flood the market with like a lot of emails, and guess what? Some of them will convert. Guess what? Most of the email addresses you may have are probably from so old that email addresses are probably defunct. They don't work anymore. So you have to constantly keep cleaning your email addresses almost as a best practice, as well as there are companies like the CDS and the QSS of the world which are in print fulfillment business. They have actually put in very mature rules on actually doing address verification, just to make sure that your print subscription copies arrives at your home and is the right address. In the digital world, it's not a problem, right? Because you are actually consuming your content in a digital medium. But when you start to do bundles of print and digital and things like that together, you should not forget those kind of complexities that these traditional kind of vendors brought to it. So that's why we partnered with them, and they actually have partnerships all over the world. Not only do they verify print addresses, but also different emails. So in all, the goal is if you have a CRM database, you should put in strides to actually keep it up to date, so that that data is not just sitting there and still, it is actually providing you kind of good use. I talked about access control, so an entitlement store. So we're using a product called Glue. It has some of the newer protocols that you need in the market space for the future, and our enterprise service hub is MuleSoft. So a lot of times what we before is we had kind of spaghetti connections, all of these systems connecting to each other, and guess what? What happened is if you want to rip one of the things out, others will kind of start to break. So you don't want that happening. So we have a MuleSoft thing in the middle, plus you want accurate access control. So a combination of Glue and MuleSoft is going to provide that. Obviously, personalization, we're looking at, right now we're using sell-through. We're looking at some of the other, we have our open RFP where we're looking at a few other vendors and seeing if there are other better platforms out there in the market. And the third one I would kind of say is focus on insights and retention. So obviously, we have insights and different dashboards coming from Urban Airship is where we get our push notification dashboards. You get Omniture or your web clicks and all of your email metrics come in sell-through. Obviously, a lot of the profiling and segmentation activities happen in Salesforce, and our drill down dashboards are all in ClickView. And lastly, our CRM platform is Salesforce. So even though it's a complicated ecosystem, I wanted to group them up into kind of 3 areas so that it kind of makes slightly better sense. So that's then the third kind of question. And this is a way complicated diagram, but I wanted to show it to you either way. This shows up the ecosystem that we are building for the initiative that I'm leading globally. So it has Salesforce kind of CRM in the middle. We have Zuora in there as subscription management, Easy Publish doing those things. Glue is doing authentication, single sign-on. Drupal is still powering our website. QSS is our fulfillment vendor. They're going to continue to do print fulfillment and telemarketing. Later on, we'll transition it somewhere else. Sell-through is doing that, and then you have 2 warehouses, one media warehouse and one kind of circulation warehouse. And in media warehouse, we talked about Oracle, BlueKai, and then Dart, and obviously LiveRamp we said for onboarding kind of, and some kind of second-party data. So takeaways from this discussion, if I were to leave you with, initially I asked 3 questions, and I would say these are the top elevator pitch answers to each one of them. So I would say, identify deficiencies in your business operation and allocate transformation dollars accordingly, so you will not be able to solve all your problems at the same time. So you will have to look at those 3 areas and see where your biggest problems are, where your biggest opportunities lie, and then based on that, you would be trying to invest in 1 or 2 of these areas. So whenever you're looking at lifetime value, please don't forget to appreciate customer delight and loyalty side by side with growth targets, because we always get too hung up on growth targets, where are we growing? Don't forget the importance of customer experience and loyalty aspect of it, because if you're not doing it, then you're missing a big trick. Lastly, I would say create a digital ecosystem to respond to new trends and disruptive technologies. Don't get too panicked and freaked out about, oh, something disruptive will come along. What's the point of doing it? If you don't do it, you're going to be disrupted even more, right? So try to come up with an open ecosystem where it's a little bit of a, that is why I showed this diagram. The interesting part of the diagram is we started working on a different subscription kind of a partner, and then later on we swapped it with Zuora, because when we did our initial test, they didn't come out well. So a kind of a hub and spoke model, what will allow you to do through a middleware is it'll allow you to take parts of your components out and put other components in. So tomorrow if something kind of comes along, and let's say for all newspapers, we're going to probably digital properties do retina scan, who knows? So we're going to do probably, so to authenticate, it'll, as a subscriber, we'll all have retina scans in there. So what it'll do is a retina scan module will go in and plug into Salesforce CRM. So don't get worried about and too hung up on what is the long term going to look like, and that is why I'm going to, because transformation is going to be constant. You have to constantly transform yourself. So every year you will have to invent some transformation dollar and set it aside, or else guess what, you are going to do a massive project a few years later, which you constantly don't want to do. So again, so third point is to reemphasize it, create a robust digital ecosystem which responds to new trends and disruptive technologies. So thanks for listening. You can follow me on Sumo Tech. So if there are any questions, I can answer. Peter?
Brian, do you actively work with those vendors? Are you on their product councils?
Yes, yes.
How does that work?
So typically what we are doing is, in certain cases, they have asked us to be there. In certain cases, we've not joined yet. And that's for other kind of contractual reasons. typically what we do is, I'll give an example, for example, Zuora. One of the things that the market is looking at, and some of the countries, is they're asking for 3D Secure in payment methodology. So things like verified by Visa, sometimes you get a PIN number that comes on websites. So there are countries that are now starting to mandate having all credit card transactions go through a 3D Secure framework. Zuora didn't have that, so we wanted to push those up their roadmap. So what we're not only doing is, we're not only going and ourselves joining those advisory panels, we're almost in a weird way ganging up on them. So we're getting other publishers along who have a similar things, and we are asking them to join along. There was also another challenge in a platform where revenue recognition in the publishing world is very issue-based, because you have issues that are going out, and these are not daily kind of access. So some companies have decided to customize these platforms. For us, the only way we can keep a platform like this nimble and simple is to try to put it out of the box as much as possible. So another thing that you have to be comfortable as digital kind of stewards in your company is to be able to have that confidence to push back to people that, why are you customizing this? Because more and more you go down the route of customizing a platform, guess what? Less and less you'll be wedded into that platform, and any innovation later on will become extremely challenging. So try to keep it simple, try to keep it out of the box as much as possible. If possible, if there are things that are being proposed which are very customized and personalized, go back and ask the question, why are you wanting this? What is the business? What is the end outcome that you're trying to drive? And then suggest to them other ways of delivering that outcome without driving that big customization on your platform. So that is one area. So what we did is, we had a revenue recognition challenge in one of the platforms. So what we did is, we, the Telegraph, the Time Inc., and Guardian, we kind of ganged up on them, saying that, all right, we are all your customers and your prospective customer. You need to move up your roadmap. So those are some of the things we constantly do. It gets a little bit tricky with big vendors like Salesforce, where we are probably one of the small fish in the pond, but we keep trying.
Do you make that a part of your contract with these vendors that you want?
With the one, that example that I said, it was part of the contract. In certain cases, I have actually negotiated contract where it is a prerequisite to a contract. In certain cases, I have also mentioned it that it is a prerequisite to renewal of a contract. So if there are things that you really want them to do and you don't want to first customize it yourself and you're passionate about it, make sure it's part of your renewal clause, saying that, all right, I can go with it right now in your 1 year or 2 year renewal when it comes up. That needs to be an offering in your package, or you need to own the development and put it there. Those are the things that we need to be really comfortable to tell them that that is what you need to do, or else we will get down into this thing of constantly personalizing, and guess what? It's not going to look pretty in 5 years' time, I promise you. Any other questions from here? Okay.
I love what you said about media and publishing being really kind of at the apex of evolution.
Yeah,
Die,
yeah.
right? So much of what we hear is die.
Yeah.
I've worked with some publishers recently who, I just want to hear what the economist kind of reaction is to this, but who I tried to advise against embracing things like native advertising and content.
We're totally against it.
You know, to make money in the short term, but in the process dilute their overall brand.
So glad you asked the question. One of the things that we're totally against native advertising, because obviously we are one of the premium priced things in the market, and I don't know, a lot of you would notice that if you go on The Economist, you will see pseudonyms of people. You will not know who the writer is actually of each one of them. Even internally, I don't know who the writer is. So that gives you a total editorial integrity. And in certain cases, the editorial board doesn't even report up to the CEO. They report up to a separate kind of board of directors, of lords and barons, rich lords and barons in the UK, right? So that they report up to there. So